Hey there! My name is Asher, and I'm here to tell you about all the times that my mom and sister have acted strange around me. And I don't mean just strange, I mean strange. Like, that cannot be politically or morally correct kind of strange. If you want, here's a little more about us. I live with my mom and my younger sister Mira. She's 3 years younger than me. My father kinda ran off a while ago, a little after my sister was born. My mom specifically works retail, and always has, since she was 17. It's not the largest salary one can make, but it's better than nothing, being a single parent to 2 kids and all. Sometimes she needs to take on side jobs to make ends meet. But my sister, who's 16, makes some really good money babysitting and dog sitting. Our neighborhood is packed with large families, most of which have at least 1 kid and 2 dogs. Sometimes she'll help my mom out when she needs it. Though, despite that, my mom isn't as close to my sister as she is me. It has to do with the whole father leaving after Mira was born thing. My mom probably will never tell her what she truly thinks of her. I'm currently on break from college, which allows me more time with them. But to be honest, I didn't really want to go back home. But I also didn't live in a dorm to stay in, because that would mean college debt. I'll explain my college situation a little later. When I came back home, my mom and sister were all over me again. They never left me alone. And I know exactly why. I don't like telling people this because it makes me seem like some conceited fool, but I suppose I'll start from the beginning. Before I was born, my mom was extremely unlucky in everything she ever did. It was truly a miracle that she managed a career in retail without getting fired. Despite all of the things that went wrong for her, she constantly got laid off from paychecks as compensation for her poor work. The only thing she was lucky about then was that she didn't get fired. She went around and tried to win raffles, but in the end, she only lost more money. However, that all changed when I was born. She was a working parent, same as my dad, who was there still, but her income was a lot less than his. However, my mother claims that the moment I came into this world, it's like a switch flipped. Once, she was tight on time, so she had to bring me with her. Her coworkers didn't mind, apparently. That day when she brought me, she did nothing different at her job. Yet she suddenly got a promotion which upped her pay. She believed it was because of me, and started calling me her lucky charm. There was one thing that my mom always wanted, and that was a second child. But all the time she and my father tried, it was never successful. My mom swears by it. I don't remember this. But she told me one day that when I was 3, I told her I wanted a little baby sister, which was the first time she's ever heard me say that. A few nights after that, she was pregnant with Mira. That only increased her belief that I was a lucky charm, literally and figuratively. When Mira was born, a stroke of misfortune fell upon us. My father left, and so did the income needed for the bills. He didn't give the clearest of answers, but it had to do with more expenses with a second child. Not to mention, he thought my mom was a gambling addict, considering the amount of money she spent on raffles. My mom was devastated, but she didn't blame me. No, I was her lucky charm. The one she blamed was Mira, but she never told her, and neither did I. I don't think we'd ever tell her. There was this one singular event that made my mother's belief skyrocket. One time when I was younger, my mom couldn't find her earring. It was a small stud, so it could easily be missed. She turned the house upside down and flipped it inside out. I could hear her from the other side of the house. It got to a point where I just got up to see what was the matter. On the way there, in between the cracks of the hallway wood floor, was a tiny silver stud earring. At that time, I didn't know it was what my mom was looking for. I entered her bedroom where she was and asked, "Mom, what are you doing?" She was like, "I lost this tiny stud earring and I can't find it anywhere." I just held out my hand with the earring and asked if this was what she was looking for. Her face looked completely floored. She was like, "What? How? I just looked there 10 times. How did you find them?" I just shrugged and handed her it. She looked at it for a moment before she looked up at me. She then said, "God, you are my lucky charm. What would I do without you?" And that's where the deep-rooted belief began. Anyways, my luck continued to prove my mother's point. At my middle school, there was a raffle going on. I remember my mom telling me she enjoyed them, but never won anything. I'd never done one before, so I did. I put my name and number on most of the raffle tickets. At least the things that interested me. I didn't really anticipate anything coming out of it. The whole thing was based on chance. What were the chances of me winning anything? Well, apparently all of them. Each of the raffle tickets I had submitted were the ones picked. When I came home with all the things I managed to win, my mom was absolutely shocked. What were the odds, truly? My sister wasn't very superstitious to begin with, but I think that fueled it to a level comparable to my mom. In fact, with the addition of my sister, it got worse. After that, she forced me to come to other events hosted. She made me participate in everything that regarded material items that would be useful to us, and money. You probably couldn't even imagine her joy when I managed to win everything we submitted raffle tickets for. She dragged me to her high school football games, claiming that it would help her school win. I told her that was crazy. There was no way that my luck would transfer from mere raffle tickets, which was based on chance, to football games, which was based on skill and training. Well, apparently I was wrong. Because the game I just so happened to attend, my sister's high school won. That one game managed to convince my sister that I was a quote-unquote lucky charm as well. I thought it was a stupid nickname and a stupid thing to think about. Sure, I suppose someone could be lucky in a moment, but not inherently lucky. My mom and sister didn't agree with that. At all. They thought I was some sort of god or something. Well, maybe not that extreme. But the way they showered me with compliments, dragged me everywhere they could, made people think they were worshipping me or something. I got uncomfortable with what they were doing, and how they were doing it. But they'd always say, "You're our lucky charm. We have to be so close to you, otherwise it'll wear off." As if that's a valid excuse. Anyways, the point of this is that the first night I came home for winter break, I had something absolutely unbelievable happen to me. My room was exactly how I left it 2 semesters ago. However, this is where it gets strange. All 3 of us have our own separate rooms. We have never, ever shared a bed, even while camping. We all liked our personal space. Well, the night that I came home, I went to sleep a little earlier than usual. I was tired, and it was break, so I figured I might as well get as much sleep as humanly possible. I went to bed around 9 at night. I never locked my door. There really was no reason. My mom and sister respected my privacy and never came into my room without knocking first. Or at least announcing their presence. At first, everything was perfectly fine and normal. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was out of sorts. But it was in the middle of the night that I woke up to the most embarrassing thing ever. I'm usually a pretty heavy sleeper. Usually. But that one night, apparently my heavy sleeping failed me. I'm pretty sure I woke up because I heard snoring. It took a little to actually open my eyes, and when I did, there wasn't a lot of light. So I had to try to turn on a light. Except my arm was being held down by something. Or someone. That's also when I noticed another person on my right. I looked at my door and saw that it was closed and still unlocked. I then looked at my window, but saw it perfectly intact and closed. So no one broke in, and even if they did, who would break into someone's house to cuddle? I finally was able to pull my arm out of the person's grasp and lean to the side enough to turn the light on. The 2 people in my bed weren't some randos who managed to find a peaceful way into my house. It was my mom and sister. The first thing I felt was absolute disgust and mortification. I had no idea what to do, or how to get out of that situation as calmly and as rationally as possible. First off, those 2 have never done anything like that. Not without my permission, let alone at night, all sleeping together in the same bed. I looked at my sister, who was getting real comfy sidling up next to me. I then proceeded to violently push her out of the bed. The thump and impact was enough to wake her up with a jolt and a scream. And that jolt and scream was enough to wake up my mother with a shout. It was complete chaos. As soon as they woke up, I demanded, that's right, demanded, not asked, why they were sleeping in my room, let alone in my bed. My mother didn't seem fazed in the least. In fact, she turned to me, smiled, and said, "You're our lucky charm. If we sleep with you, our luck will amplify." Which, first off, absolutely horrified me. I looked at my sister and was like, "You went along with this?" Even in the dim lighting, I could tell her face was getting red. I hoped it was out of embarrassment. All she said was, "Well, you haven't been home." She said it pretty quietly, but I heard her. My mom told me it's not weird for a parent to sleep with their children, and that I should be more accepting of it, rather than question them. I had no problem with sleeping next to them, but the difference was we usually slept together on the couch, a space big enough for all of us to lie comfortably and spread out if need be, not on my bed, which was just a queen mattress. Jamming all three of us on there was uncomfortably stifling and awkward. I asked my mom why she couldn't have just woken me up to go sleep on the couch, and her excuse was, "You just look so cute sleeping in your bed." I couldn't resist. If I told this story directly to any of my friends, it would come off severely wrong and be misinterpreted without a doubt. I then asked my sister why she, of all people, would ever agree to this. She wasn't one for a lot of physical affection, so the fact that she crawled into a bed with my mom, let alone me, was a shocker. She just kind of mumbled something along the lines of, "Because I wanted to." Like, excuse me? That's not a reason. I'd hoped that they knew how insane and ridiculous they sounded. A 16-year-old girl sleeping with her 19-year-old brother, and a 43-year-old woman sleeping with her 19-year-old son? That has CPS written all over it. Like, do they get how, inappropriate that sounds? Let alone is? I asked my mom, "Do you realize how crazy you sound? Go back to your own bed." She just shook her head and said, "No, I'm sleeping with you whether you like it or not." And I was like, "Well, I don't, and if you do, I'm leaving and sleeping somewhere else." I sounded like a parent. It was like the roles suddenly reversed, and I was dealing with a child not wanting to go back to their own bed. I may have been lucky to them, but surely my own luck liked to turn against me. Why else would this be happening? I then turned my head to Mira, hoping that at least she would go back to her own bed and leave me alone. All she gave me was a non-committal shrug and went, "I go wherever Mom goes." Great. Wonderful. Lovely. There was no way of getting rid of them. The two crawled back into bed with me and went out like lights immediately after. However, I stayed up. I couldn't sleep. How could I? I was in an unfortunate and unlovely position. That's when I started to wonder just how far my mom's superstition of me being lucky went. If she went as far as to make her child uncomfortable and invade his personal space, what other lengths would she go to? To ensure her luck wouldn't run out? I didn't want to find out. I was afraid to. People do a lot of crazy things when driven by want or need or greed. Unfortunately, though, that wasn't the first time they've done crazy things to me. After that first night from college, I failed to get them out of my bed, let alone my room. They insisted. No, demanded to sleep near me at all times every night for the rest of our lives. Every time I would ask them why, it was the same reply over and over. "You're our lucky charm, and we don't want to lose that, or give it up." They were acting crazy. I resorted to coming up earlier and locking my door to keep them out. But the next minute I know, they're at my window trying to climb in. I understand the whole lucky charm thing, but now they were acting like lunatics. Like, if I stopped being around them, they would lose everything. I just completely gave up after the third night. My sister slept on the floor, and my mom slept in the bed with me. I didn't like it at all, but there was just no point in trying to fight it. My mom took my door off the hinges herself to ensure I couldn't keep her out, and my sister almost broke my window because I locked it once. It's like all concepts of privacy have just gone from their minds. But all I had to do was survive a week and a half. Then I'd be back at college, and with my roommates. Oh, if only I'd known what was in store for me for the rest of the days left. They never left my side. Ever. Anywhere. Even during bathroom trips, they stood outside the door, which made things very uncomfortable. Especially since I'm lactose intolerant and love ice cream. When I went out to the store to buy something as simple as groceries, they followed me, practically attached to my sides. They never left me out of their sights for more than a second. I felt like a child again. I remember once that I was talking with a friend from college. My mom and sister weren't there, so I took advantage of that. The conversation was going well until my mother decided to show up, standing at my side and hugging me into her. She asked me who I was talking to, and I told her it was a friend from college. She then asked what their intentions were with me, and if they tried to steal me away, she'd deal with them personally. I certainly didn't expect my mom to threaten someone. My friend just excused himself and left, which in turn created an awkward relationship between us. I was so angry at my mom for even insinuating what she did. She just told me she was doing what she had to do to protect her lucky charm. Unfortunately, luck may have been on her side all the time, but it wasn't on my side every day. That wasn't the first time she's embarrassed me in front of a college friend. There was one time where I was leaving class and my mom was driving me home. She stood outside of my classroom calling my name as loudly as she could, while looking like a complete idiot. Everyone turned and stared at her, wondering whose idiotic parent that was. I didn't talk the whole ride home, and she never got the reason why. There was one more time that I can think of. My high school graduation. God, it's even horrible to think about. I was on stage getting my diploma. It's silent. No one's speaking, just enjoying the moment. As soon as I received my diploma, my mom and sister who were at the back of the audience stand up. I could barely see them, but I heard them clearly when they decided to yell, "That's our lucky charm!" into the silent gymnasium. All of the graduates looked at me, and the teachers were probably wondering how I could stand having a family like that. I ask myself that same question sometimes. When the ceremony was over, and everyone was out in the parking lot congratulating each other, my mom and sister were the loudest and proudest people there. My mom bought me a giant bouquet of roses, and my sister bought me a giant stuffed bear. I didn't need either of those things, and both of them needed to save money. But I accepted them anyways. I'll never forget the faces of all my fellow graduates as I walked to my car with a giant bouquet and stuffed bear. Some of my friends still tease me about that to this day. There was one time where I thought that finally, my luck was turning around. Kira was a fellow classmate of mine, and an honor roll student. She was known around the entire campus for her intellect and natural teaching ability. Not to mention, she was very pretty. Everyone wanted to be like her, or to be friends with her. I had mulled over the idea, but came to a conclusion that I'd want to be casual friends. We both have the same majors, so I see her more often than some. Well, one day during winter break, my doorbell rang. I didn't expect anyone to come visit me, since we'd normally planned beforehand. You could probably imagine my shock when Kira stood outside my door. She was there to return a binder that I must have left behind. And since she was doing extra college courses, she was able to find it and return it to me. After that, she had asked me if I wanted to hang out with her the day after, and I obviously said yes. She gave me her phone number and left a little after that. As soon as I walked back into the living room, my sister and mom were looking at me with narrowed eyes. I asked them what was up with them, and they asked who was at the door. I told them Kira, a friend from school, came by to drop off the binder I left behind. They continued to stare at me, and the whole atmosphere turned awkward suddenly. My mom then asked, what else did she want? It was weird. Normally she wasn't so pushy about things like that. I told her that she also asked me to hang out with her the day after, and the two of them flipped. My mom started telling me that I couldn't go because I had to spend time with her after being away for so long. My sister's thing was that she was going to ask me to take her to the mall to go shopping. Something about bonding with me as a sibling. I told the both of them that they could hold off their plans for a few hours. I was planning to meet up with Kira, and they weren't going to stop me. My mom then asked, well, what are we going to do when you're gone? I asked her what she normally did while I was at college, and her reply was, cry, usually. Fear we're going to lose you. My sister just said she busied herself with jobs. Skip past to the days after. I'm out with Kira at this cafe. We're both sitting outside since the inside was too loud to be heard over. It's like 30 degrees out, sunny, and there's not a lot of cars, so not much traffic noise. To me, it was a perfect day to do something like that with her. We mainly just talked about what we wanted for our future. Our plans, our goals, aspirations, everything was just going amazing. Then, for a moment, Kira leaned slightly to the side, and sitting at the table behind her in terrible disguises were my mother and Mira. Kira obviously knew something attracted my attention because she looked at where I was. I told her it was nothing, but I don't think she fully believed me. After that, I couldn't focus on her. All I could imagine was what my mother and sister were doing, stalking me. In public, no less. Sure, Kira was none the wiser, but I wasn't. And I knew what they were trying to do. Or I thought I did, at least. It got to a point where she asked me point blank if I was okay. I just told her I thought I saw someone I knew. I felt bad for lying, but what was I supposed to say? I didn't want to freak her out. Back home, I was furious. My mom and Mira returned home a few minutes after me, acting as if nothing was wrong. When they saw me, giant smiles formed on their faces. My mom asked me how my hangout with Kira went and wanted all of the details. I told her to cut the act, that I saw both of them sitting at the table next to us. The both of them just looked at each other before giving in. I was just surprised they fessed up so quickly. I asked my mom why they would ever do that. That they didn't trust me enough? My mom said, Honey, it has absolutely nothing to do with our trust in you. But what if she tried to steal you away? Take you to where we couldn't follow? Couldn't be with or near you? We can't let that happen. You're our lucky charm for a reason. And so it goes back to that. And here I thought my luck was finally at my side. Turns out it came with a cost. I told both of them that if they ever did again, I would permanently move out of the house. Mira replied with, That's such a rash thing to do. You know how much you mean to the both of us. Why would you want to give that up? I was too tired and angry to explain my reasons. Instead, I just told them I was going to bed. Later that night, Kira called. She wanted to know if I was alright, since I was acting so weirdly at the end of our hangout. I told her I was fine, and that it was a long story. And a weird one. She just told me it was alright, and that I didn't need to tell her if I didn't want to. I thought about it for a moment. No one knows of the reason why my mom and Mira are obsessed with me. I was never able to confide in anyone. That was my opportunity to finally let out some steam. And I did. I told her almost everything about my lucky charm. I also told her that both my sister and mom were following us that day, because they were afraid she'd steal me away from them. I was expecting her to flip, to call us creepy and never talk to me again. Instead, she sympathized with me, told me she knows it's hard being with those kinds of people. For once, I actually felt like I was appreciated. Not just as a lucky charm or superstition, but as a person. However, I failed to notice my mom and Mira hanging outside my room. I also failed to realize that they heard everything, and that they'd come up with a plan to ruin Kira and I's relationship. The next morning, they were gone from the house. Just up and left. Disappeared. I didn't know where they went, and they normally told me where they were going, or they dragged me to it. Around the afternoon, Kira texted me. She asked me why I'd been parked outside her house for 3 hours. I told her I was still in my house, but my mom and Mira were out. Oh, then everything clicked. I told Kira what I realized and instructed her not to open the door or go outside. Without a moment to lose, I grabbed the keys to our second car and drove to her house. Mom and Mira were not going to hear the end of that.